Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. I am your host John, and today here on the channel we're going to be talking about weapons, and we're also going to be talking about its brand new Warner Bros. 4K Blu-ray that just came out. But before I get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I always like to give a quick film review, and today is no different. So if you don't want to know anything about the film Weapons, which I am going to spoil right now, make sure you guys skip ahead to that 4K Blu-ray review right now. Weapons was released earlier this year. This is the second film that Zach Cregger has ever directed. He also directed Barbarian, which came out a couple years ago, which doesn't have a physical media release, which is still a very big sore spot in the horror community and definitely in the physical media community. But luckily, Weapons was so well received earlier this year, and I agree with a lot of those critics. This is one of the best films of 2025. This movie has a stat cast top to bottom featuring Julia Garner, Josh Brolin, Benedict Wong, Alden Ehrenreich, and the real standout performance in this movie is Amy Madigan. That really stood out because I haven't seen Amy Madigan in so long. I just think of the 1980s when I think of her. You know, she was in Uncle Buck.
She lives across the road, and she came over to,
Shut up, Buck.
That's a good idea.
She was in Streets of Fire.
Now, you may have a rough time with this one, and I don't want to hurt your feelings, but, you're not my type.
And then, of course, probably her most famous performance in Field of Dreams.
Who's for the Bill of Rights? Who thinks freedom is a pretty darn good thing?
And in this movie, this will probably end up being her most memorable performance as Aunt Gladys.
Yes, a bowl. It's a peculiarity of mine. I don't even try to rationalize it anymore.
And Zach Cregger, the director of this film, really comes into it firing hard, like a more confident director. Obviously, he also produced the film, he wrote this movie, and he said that he wrote this movie when he was dealing with the loss of a friend, like the grief of losing a friend. And you can see that in this movie. And it's weird because I've heard a lot of people say that this is kind of a movie about nothing, and that's why it was kind of hard for them to get into this film, because they couldn't understand like what the point of this movie was, like what the theme of this movie was. And I don't think there's like a through line throughout the entire film of like themes and messages. It's just a very entertaining horror film. But if you look at the characters in this film, it's just a great study of human beings. It's human beings with flaws. Like Josh Brolin's character, like, you know, the sudden loss of his son. Even though his son's not dead, he doesn't know for sure. He's grieving his son right now because at the beginning of this film, we find out that this one classroom where Julia Gardner, who's the first character we'll be following in this movie, her classroom, all the students went missing except for one student. And that one student was there that day, and there's her. And now Josh Brolin's character can't understand what happened, just like everybody else can't understand what happened. And so he's trying to push his blame and his anger all towards the Julia Gardner character. And this movie's structured in such a unique way. It's like in chapters, but the chapters are for the actual characters that we see throughout the movie. So we started off with Julia Gardner's character, then we shift to the Josh Brolin character, before we shift to the Alden Ehrenreich character, and so on and so forth. And we get to see moments in this film from different people's perspectives. It's very well structured. It's very unique. It's non-linear. You know, it's a great creative choice for this movie to tell this story. And it could get a little bit boring seeing things over and over again, but the score is so well done. And again, those characters, studying these human characters. The Julia Gardner character and the Alden Ehrenreich character are very complex. They're struggling with alcoholism, you know, all the addiction stuff throughout this film is all so very well done. And then it's all very funny as well. The amount of times the character says, "What the fuck?" You could have named this movie "What the Fuck," because it just gets absolutely insane. If you thought that the giant old lady in Barbarian was insane, this movie really goes for it when we go right at the very end of this movie, when it's revealed to all of us that Aunt Gladys is a witch. And, you know, she's got this like old ancient tree combined with the blood and the hair. She's using these human beings, these kids, and the Benedict Wong character as actual weapons. Like when she does her little trickery, her witchcraft, her little spell or whatever, she sends them to go target somebody as actual weapons. And you know what? It all gets turned around on her, and I love that moment when she realizes and she says, "Oh shit."
Oh no.
And then the kids are chasing her. The best scene in the entire film, like going through these houses, man. They must have had a lot of stuntmen for this one, and you can clearly tell because they don't want to show the kids' faces, and it's like from the back. Makes a lot of sense, but it's just really, really well done. A great way to end the film, watching her just get ripped to shreds, and then of course having all the characters be reunited with their families. It's all kind of done with the narration that started the movie, and I like that it's like 2 years later, and the kids are really starting to finally talk. Like, yeah, of course, this is very traumatic for them, and unfortunately, Alex is parents are, like they said, they're being fed soup somewhere. They're probably done for. They spent a lot of time under their spell. I don't think there's too much hope for them, which is kind of sad. And again, it's dealing with grief, and you can see that throughout this film. So I kind of push back against people when they say that there's no like themes or messages through these movies. Through this movie, I think there really is. I think there is a theme throughout it. And I just think it's really about human beings. And doing that in a well-made horror film with great practical effects, really, there's nothing you can complain about when it comes to this film. I will admit it didn't work as well at home as it did when I first saw it in theaters. The laugh-out-loud moments were definitely funnier with a crowd than watching it at home with just my wife. Didn't laugh as much, so that stuff didn't nail it as much at home. But it's still a great film, still one of the best films of 2025. And it just got a 4K Blu-ray, so let's talk about that right now. Well, here it is, the standard edition of Weapons on 4K Blu-ray. There is a steelbook release out there, and there's actually a pretty key difference between this 4K Blu-ray standard edition and that steelbook edition. The steelbook got the Blu-ray packed in here. If you just got the 4K with the slipcover like I did, you only got the 4K Blu-ray. Now, from my understanding, that Blu-ray that's packed in there is just a downgraded version to 1080p, so you don't get the bells and whistles of high dynamic range or Dolby Vision. But I did hear it was a little bit brighter. If you watch Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews review of Weapons on 4K Blu-ray, he talks about that. So I can't actually compare the Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray. I only have this 4K Blu-ray to check out for myself. Let's slide the slipcover off and take a look. Same artwork underneath. You come inside. It did come with a digital code, but here's your standard edition 4K Blu-ray. Just like blue, very lazy. This is the definition of a standard edition. There's nothing very special about it. It's just, let's get the movie out there for everybody. Now, this is a modern film, just came out earlier this year, so it already sounded great in theaters, it looked great in theaters, and it does look and sound great at home. You get a Dolby Atmos track, it does have Dolby Vision and HDR10, so it looks and sounds fantastic. I mean, the audio track is really good. It is a great Dolby Atmos track. But I thought it was a great Dolby Atmos track in theaters, so it's just a very well mixed audio track, and I really did enjoy that. It really does help to build up the tension in the moments, even the sense of dread in moments, so I really do appreciate the audio track overall, and it does make for a great Dolby Atmos track. Now, the visuals, I can see what Frank is talking about when it comes to it being a very dark 4K Blu-ray. It was funny, my wife even said that because we started this as the sun was setting, so it was still light outside, and she's like, yeah, it's a little bit dark, and I was like, yeah, Frank pointed out. It's a little bit of a dark 4K Blu-ray, but I do think that kind of works for the warm tone of this movie. Zach Cregger definitely likes his warm looking movies. This was very similar, like the houses that they were in, to Barbarian. Like, he has a certain look to him. You can clearly tell that there's a bit of an auteur's vision throughout his two films, and he's definitely making sure that his colors lean more on the warmer side, and of course that kind of lends itself better to like a darker 4K Blu-ray. This is a horror film as well, so I don't know, I can't say for sure because I don't have the Blu-ray to compare it to, but the 4K Blu-ray itself, when it comes to the visuals, they're very good in my opinion. Now, what about the extras? Well, like I said, standard edition kind of stuff here. You get 3 featurettes that if you would have edited them all together, it'd be about 20 minutes long, and you'd look at that as about a 20-minute making of. It has interviews with everybody. It's definitely cool to hear Zach Cregger's own words about the making of this movie and why he did it, and like casting certain actors and why certain actors were attracted to the script. Like Josh Brolin, Zach Cregger said that, Josh Brolin, he was honored that he was there to do his movie, and he thanked God every day that Josh Brolin came to the set. And Josh Brolin said that the script was great. He kept coming back to it. Same thing Julia Gardner said. And I love all that stuff. I just, would have liked more of that. But that's kind of stuff that comes years down the line if it's like, let's say, an Arrow Video does a re-release of this on 4K Blu-ray. Because, it's Warner Brothers. They do kind of have a relationship, so you never do know. But this is just the definition of a standard edition. Let's get this movie out there for people who liked it in theaters. And this was one of my favorite films of 2025, so I wanted to check it out at home. But I can't say that there's anything too special about it. Now, the Steelbook was probably the better edition to get, obviously having the Blu-ray packed in there as well. But if, wanted to save a little bit of money, just get the standard 4K like I did. I don't think that's a bad idea as well. I did want to have this one in my collection because it is one of my favorite films of the year. I did want to see how it carried over to my home theater compared to the movie theater. And overall, it's a pretty good 4K Blu-ray. I don't really have too many complaints about it. It's just, your classic standard edition. That's kind of what the theme of this 4K Blu-ray is. And if I was going to give this one a score of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it a pretty damn solid 8 out of 10. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel memberships, guys, so if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer for the channel like John Doe Juggalo, Harvey Scott, and Ben Rondo, you can do that. Or you can bump it up to the channel directors tier like Nicholas Head, Uncle V, Kevin Kruger, Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews, or Stone Gasman, or you can even bump it up to the channel bankroll members like Mr. Smelly Potato. But of course, guys, if you have no money to throw my way, I don't mind at all. Just hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.